Hello guys, I decided to record this video because as you know, I've been trying to go live on YouTube for 2 days today, yesterday and today. And something very bizarre is going on. I've done several lives before. If you watch my channel, you're aware of this. And I've never had an issue. I normally set it up and it's very smooth. And something strange is happening, and I checked everything. I retried, went through all the prepping last night, ready to go today, and today it's doing the same thing it did yesterday. So I know it's not my system, I know it's not my internet, and therefore I have no idea what's going on. Lorraine said, well, that's proof that the system is collapsing. I'm like, great, could it not collapse on me after we're doing so much to prop this up? I am very disappointed, I have to tell you, because I was really looking forward to connecting with you. That's the beauty of doing these lives as opposed to just recording videos. However, I do, well, first of all, I want to tell you that Lorraine came up with a solution, which I think is brilliant. So let me tell you about that first. She was thinking what we're going to do, what we can do is set up a Zoom where I invite you guys, whoever wants to be part of it. I'll post a link everywhere, pretty much on my channel, Telegram group, etc., wherever I can think of posting it. And then you guys can come in. So it's going to be live in that sense. And you can ask your questions in the chat. And then we're just going to upload it like that and people can watch it replay. So pretty much the equivalent of what we'll be doing on YouTube. But the second thing I was going to say is that the reason I am so disappointed is because I really have all these questions that are great questions already from you guys. And I really just want to answer them. So we're going to pretend this is a live, even though I'm not having nearly as much fun as I would have had in a live, because it's so fun to touch base with you and see what you guys are up to, where you're all logging in from and so on. And but we'll do this again. And again, we're not gonna leave it to YouTube to screw up for us. All right. I will ask, by the way, I will ask the 25th about this because it's very, very strange. All right. So I have some questions here. And I have to say most of the questions have to do with the NPC thing. I think the reason these questions are coming up is because all of us, we cannot believe. We don't want to believe this. We don't want to believe that we are surrounded by NPCs. We see people when we interact with them, they mostly, or most of the people, look normal to us. And therefore, sometimes it's pretty obvious that these people are not there. But of course, we want to believe that at least our friends or our family, even more so, is still here, of course. And I get that. Excuse me. This is going to happen because, of course, every time I start speaking of the 25th or thinking of the stuff, I start clearing. So I got myself some tea, so hopefully that helps. At any rate, and so I understand the resistance that we have at 3D level. And let me just tell you, I personally did not believe in NPCs. And then when the 25th started talking about it, I'm thinking, oh, gosh, this NPC thing. Because what's the difference? What's the difference between somebody with an essence and somebody without? You guys know how many questions I've asked the 25th about NPCs because I still cannot wrap my mind around it. However, I have to admit that it's become so obvious that something is off with a lot of people that I kind of, sometimes I shake my head. I'm like, what other logical explanation could there be? I even had my boyfriend who's very much, feet on the ground, and he said the same thing to me because we had, for example, one interaction with a friend of ours who's a super nice person. We've known her for several years, so we kind of know how she acts. And all of a sudden, we had an interaction with her lately, and it was completely out of nowhere. We still talk about it, saying, what could have possibly happened there? So you're left with two options, really. Either the person is an NPC, so they're just not acting normal sometimes, or the person has gone crazy. And of course, I don't want to think my friend has gone crazy. And it's not like she's crazy by any stretch of the imagination. If you look at it from a 3D perspective, super intelligent person, super accomplished. She's a doctor. I mean, she's just a great person all around. And all of a sudden she's doing some really odd things. And I'm like, something is not right. And this is what I'm talking about. And this is just one example. I'm sure you've run into many examples like this. I definitely run into this when it comes to people that I don't know, so I don't have that intention or that despair almost to want to keep them here, want to pretend that they're here, because I just don't know these people, so I really don't have the emotional attachment to them being one way or the other. And so all of a sudden I will run into somebody and I see some very strange behavior. Now, I'm not talking about the strange behavior that we could have all seen in the past. I'm talking about behavior that's really odd. It's almost like this YouTube thing. It's never happened before. So while strange things happen, you're like, oh, what? Okay, well, that's new, and there is no real explanation for it. This is what I'm talking about. And I'm sure you can relate, because if I'm seeing this, and I barely ever leave the house, I pretty much have a very, very quiet lifestyle. I don't do, I don't go out at night or anything of the kind. If I'm seeing this, I'm sure you guys are running into this. And I know, Holly, you keep bringing up the fact that there are people doing all kinds, taking themselves out in all kinds of ways. In fact, you know what, Holly? Let's start with that question. So Holly asked, and here, let me read it for you guys. So this was in the Telegram group today, and Holly asked this question. She said, "Hey, Clea, not wanting to be disrespectful," and she means disrespectful towards these people that this is happening to, "but this week, instead of people falling off cliffs and running into posts / houses / other cars, signs, fences, etc., and cars setting on fire, we have a huge run of people unaliving themselves. Not meant to be brought up in a disrespectful way, are NPCs just suiciding in many different ways more frequently?" So I do want to talk about this. So thank you for the question, Holly. Here is what is happening. When the essence leaves the NPC body, and whether this is, the essence is gone, meaning it's not coming back for some reason, left the body behind and it's moved on to another reality, or it's still moved on, but it might intend to come back every once in a while and check on the body. We've discussed this latter possibility when we talked about conditions like Alzheimer's, that kind of thing. But basically, the body is looping or acting out of character, acting in odd ways, forgetting things, basically things that we associate with having a mental condition of some sort. And but the essence doesn't want to take the body out for whatever reason. And the 25th, I said, one of the reasons might be that the essence has made a commitment to the family, doesn't want the person to be gone completely, whatever the reason might be. But so the essence might decide after years to come back. However, in that absence, the body's kind of not functioning well. Because again, depending on the body, a body might be more or less able to function without an essence. And this is our individuality in terms of the body, basically the tools that we use. Now, to go back to this question, what is happening now? In the past, before the takedown, it used to be quite rare that an essence would move on and leave the body behind. There were exceptions, as we've said, but it was not typical. Typically, when an essence wanted to move on, it meant he was done with this reality, wanted to go elsewhere or do something different, and therefore it would find a way for the body to be gone. And we have many excuses for bodies to be gone here, as you well know. We are very creative. What happens is the takedown, because we, and when I say we, I mean the people who are left, the ones of us who still have essences, and there's less and less of us. Right now, the last time I checked, which was 2 weeks ago, I had my last BQH session with Lorraine, and we asked how many of us are left, and the 25th said we're about 25 to 30 million total. This is on all sides. And in terms of the dark, there's only about 4 million left of them. Okay, now, because we with essences desperately want to keep the shell going, and by shell we mean this 3D reality looking as if nothing odd is going on, because we wouldn't be able to take it otherwise. If there was no veil here, meaning this reality collapsed, we would be in an extremely emotional situation. And here's the thing, it's not just emotional at an emotional level, at a mind level, it's also emotional for your body, meaning that our bodies wouldn't even be able to function. I mean, think about how we already clear when we're dealing with very small things. This would be something, basically, this is something we don't want to deal with. We cannot deal with. We know we cannot deal with it. And therefore, something we're going to put off until we get to New Earth. So for that reason, we want to keep this shell, the semblance of 3D reality going. Now, why do I say shell? Because everything behind the scenes is going in a completely different direction. We used to have peaks of 75 to 80% darkness. And some of you might say, well, it felt more like 95% darkness, if not 100%. The 25th has said that actually could have been a lot worse. For example, they wanted to have nuclear attacks on us, and we never allowed that to happen. We didn't want to deal with the aftermath of that. So it could have been a lot worse, believe it or not. I was also a little bit in disbelief, but then, of course, I thought of all the other things that could have happened, and I realized what they're talking about not only might not seem like much, but the other two planets in the multiverse that have been taken down before we worked on our takedown were taken down once they reached 60% negative polarity, meaning 60% darkness, because that's already several points outside of range. Now, balanced polarity does not have to be 50-50, but there is a range there. And the range is, we're okay up to 53-54% darkness. More than that, it's really tough. And even though we might think nothing of 1-2% percentage points out of 100, we may say, what's 1%? 1 out of 100, it's nothing. In terms of vibration, the 25th has said that even a 1 or 2 point vibration change causes major clearing and issues. Okay, so imagine how dark we have been here. There were 75-80% polarity. We were. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because behind the scenes now we have actually rebalanced. We a few weeks ago, they already started telling me that we were pretty much getting closer to range. And the last time we had a session, I had a session with Lorraine, we basically found out it were pretty much rebalanced, which is incredible. We had not been able to do this since before we called the takedown, which is the reason we call the takedown in the first place. And the reason we've not been able, imagine, we've not been able to do this when we wanted to rebalance things. The 12,000 called for rebalancing of polarity, and we weren't heated because we were all having fun. We were okay with what was happening, just as simple as that. So it's not a matter of pointing fingers. It was them, it was me, it was you. We know that's not how it works. We all decide, we all have to support things that affect all of us, okay? So imagine once, so that failed, we didn't recalibrate when we had the chance. And then we got to the 60% negative polarity. We decided on the takedown because that's really the only thing you can do at that point. The game is already not fun at that point. But what happened is that because we decided to do this takedown differently, which means that we were going to move on with our bodies, we had to deal with logistics we didn't have to deal with during the first two takedowns. And so it took us the longest time. It ended up taking 300 years, but we had no idea how long it would take us, because again, this is a first. And to find people that would host us, because it means that we're moving to other planets. A lot of our brothers and sisters have moved on to other planets, and there must be space for them. Not only, we were 1.7 billion essences here. That's a lot of people. I know it doesn't sound like much because we're thinking multiverse is going to be trillions of humans. And the truth is, we've had such a bad reputation, especially considering the lack, or the extreme negative polarity, where people are scared of us. They'll be scared of us. Now, of course, the people that have taken us in, they expect the best. They wouldn't have done it otherwise. However, we do carry a lot of low vibration with us in our bodies, which has been one of the reasons why, even though we had planned for everybody to move on with their bodies, as you recall, some did not take their bodies and are left behind for us. Okay, so we are missing about 600 million people who left with their bodies. Okay, so there are 600 million people leaving, who have left and missing now. And we know this because even from a 3D perspective, companies cannot find people. My boyfriend was just telling me he went into a store and it's almost Christmas. In general, this is the busiest time of the year, but he went into a store that is always, not only always very busy, but also where you go in and you have like 10 salespeople attacking you basically because they want you to buy something. It's a tech store, TVs, computers, that kind of stuff. And he said there were two people. There were two people working there. And this is a huge chain store. And there's nothing wrong with them specifically where we think they're going out of business. Everything looks very proper on the surface, again, but the truth is there are no people to work in these places anymore. And the 25th has told us many times that all these systems, all these big corporations are collapsing. All right. So this was a long explanation to say that we were in very low vibration, but now we've recalibrated that. Even though on the surface it might not look like that, but we do want the game to keep going. Again, at surface level, in reality behind the scenes, what's transpiring is our intention. And our intention is we are learning that we control reality. And we are finally, for the first time in 300 years, in over 300 years here, able to control what's happening. And we have rebalanced the polarity. However, to go back to Holly's question, so what's happening? All these people have moved on, or a ton of people have moved on to other planets, whether they've gone to 3D chambers or they're consciously hanging out with the aliens. But a lot of these people were not able, again, because of how much low vibration our bodies are carrying at this point. A lot of these people were not able to take their bodies with them. What happens is that, so we have a number of NPCs we've never had on this planet. In the beginning, we were 2 billion bodies on this planet, 1.7 billion essences, so we had 300 million NPCs, which is already a big number. The reason we had such a big number is because, considering that we were about to do a takedown, many essences were interested in coming in. And this is why we always had a lot of spare bodies. This is not normal to have that many spare bodies available for essences to come in. All right. But so now what's happened, we have a huge number, a much greater number of NPCs, pretty much everybody who's left. So what would that be? So we're 2 billion people and 1.7 billion people. And we said 600 million have taken their bodies, more or less. We're talking percentages here. So we're left what, 1.1 billion essences, or 1.1 billion bodies that had essences at that point. And now we're down to 25 to 30 million. So you see people have kept on leaving even after the takedown. And so basically where we are now is that these bodies have been without an essence for a while. The longer a body stays without an essence, the more chances that the body will malfunction, if you want to think of it that way. Now, I don't want us to think of bodies as being just robotic. There are people that seem perfectly fine and are not acting out or doing anything odd. However, there's clearly a very big number of people that are not taking well to the fact that the essence is left and are not doing so well. And so that's why we're seeing huge numbers of people pass. For example, I was never aware that many people passing in my own circle, people that I know or that I know of. And all of a sudden, the past few weeks have been crazy. I have had 2 friends, for example, tell me that their husbands, one person had an ex-husband and one person had a husband and her daughter pass away in the same week. This is just crazy stuff happening. All right. So if we didn't have an explanation for this, we'd be here shaking our heads and scratching our heads saying, what is going on? And again, that's why I mean, this is really the only logical explanation that people are leaving. And what's happening? So what Holly's talking about is that, so she's asking, are they suiciding themselves? And again, and I'm not laughing here or thinking that because it's funny, but I'm laughing because you get to the point where you're asking yourself that. You're like, okay, something odd is happening. But no, so what's happening is that it's not that NPCs do not intend things. NPCs go with the flow. So for example, you follow the energy that is out there. That's why they follow our intention when it comes to the recall. We're wanting the recall of this thing. We've intended it, and these are NPCs carrying it out because there aren't that many of us with essences left. Now, there may be 1 or 2 in the midst of these people. But obviously, if you talk about governments and whatnot, the vast majority of these people are gone. Okay, so we're seeing a show. It's a puppet show. There is no essence there. But meanwhile, we are seeing unfolding the things that we intend to see unfolding. Now, these NPCs go, as I said, they go with the flow. And so what happens is they will follow our polarity. They will follow. That's why things are not, they're not doing as many dark things as they were, even though on the surface it might look like nothing is new. The 25th has told us, for example, people that used to work for 3-letter agencies have found excuses not to work there anymore. So even the NPCs that were on the side of the dark have actually lightened up a lot, or refusing to carry out some of the darker actions they were doing before. So in this case, so what happens though is that we do a lot of, apparently I learned this recently, apparently we do a lot of stupid things that could be quite dangerous, because we live in a very, or we have lived in a very negative, dense soup of vibration, very low vibration. And when the essence is not there to shield you anymore, to protect you from what could happen, the natural consequences of subjecting your body to certain things, your body doesn't have a safety net. And at that point, you will pass away. And this is what we are seeing, is that people used to do, well, there's a bit about the fact, again, NPCs are kind of, they don't have our same level of alertness, okay? Again, they're almost, I don't want to say they're robotic, but they almost go, you know, they're almost like not really paying attention. They're just living, they're just surviving, they're just doing their thing, okay? So of course, you know, if you get distracted or whatever it is, you hit a pole, you hit, you know, more than usual, you get in an accident, you take yourself out, you fall off a cliff. But in the past, this would have only happened if the essence wanted that experience. And even if it was something where the essence wanted to have that experience, and it's something that would have ended badly, if the essence decided, yeah, you're going to fall off the 8th floor, normally you would die, but I don't want to experience dying. I want to experience being in the hospital for 6 months to learn to be more careful, whatever it is that the essence wants to experience. Again, we're not here to have lessons in life. We're here just to when we say we learn, when the 25th says we learn, it just means we learn how it feels, how something feels, okay? And so in this case, the essence is not there to, again, offer the safety net where you jump off the 8th floor and you're like, oh, I walked away unscathed, or I just broke a leg and went on with my life. This is what's happening. So it's not that the NPCs are intending or proactively wanting to take themselves out. It is not that the essences are leaving and making the NPC run into a situation where it dies, and we're past that. And again, we with essences, we still want to have a bunch of NPCs around, because it plays into our game, right now. We don't want to go out to a supermarket and have it be like a lockdown situation where there's nobody but you, or it looks like there's zombies around. We don't want that, okay? I know that many are chomping at the bit saying we want disclosure, want the veil to be gone and all of this, and I get that. But at the same time, I know we wouldn't be able to take this, because we really don't know what we're talking about. The truth is, the 25th has said a million times to me now, and Lorraine is a witness of this until I release the videos, which will be released. The new session is being released right now. You'll see for yourself. 25th keeps telling us, we know that you believe that you can take this. The truth is, your higher self has chosen this option of having reality unfold this way over the next few months, because you truly cannot. So you looked at all the options available, including disclosure. You decided this was the more feasible. In fact, even when we have the recall, it's not going to be because, oh, they were trying to depopulate the earth, or there was all these conspiracies going on, which are true, are real. There's been all this evil and this darkness. No, it's going to be something very humdrum, where they're going to be like, which is the stuff we've been witnessing so far, all the drip, drip, drip about people saying, well, it's not safe or effective. Well, you know, this is wrong. Well, we didn't know any better. And it's fine. We don't care how they recall it, as long as they recall it. Why? It's not about the bags. Oh, shouldn't be saying this word. It's not about this thing. It is about the fact this is for us with SSS. This is for us to see that we change our reality, because the entire point of us staying past the 12-hour, past when everybody else left, which was last summer, is because we are bridging the gap between what we will know on the earth and what we've known here. And this is huge what we're doing now, because we are learning that even when the vibration is not available, even though we are in a very dense reality, we are on a dying planet, we create our reality. Now, some of you might be thinking, because this is something the 25th brought up as well, that we always knew that we create a reality. We've all heard it. One thing is hearing it and intellectually saying, yeah, I create my reality. And one thing is actually knowing. When we say we're bridging the gap, we are literally bridging the gap. On New Earth, we're going to be able to manifest our reality instantaneously, almost as if we were disembodied. The fact that we are now seeing that, oh my goodness, we're intended this and this is happening, this is going to be huge for us. So again, it's not about the recall, because we're moving on. There's not going to be any more this low vibrational offering for us. Definitely not on the Earth, but it's not on the other planets either. This was very low vibration, and it was only happening here on this planet. So it's not about that at all. This is over. This is an old story now. It's about the fact that we are going to see a reflection of the fact that we create our reality. And this is huge. This is what we're working on. The second we all realize it doesn't have to be conscious for everybody. This is not a matter of we have to reach a certain percentage of people who are aware of this, or we have to reach a certain percentage of knowledge by everybody. It doesn't work that way. We are all working on this at the higher self level, meaning the higher self, of course, the higher self already knows that we create our reality. The higher self is creating our reality right now. That's why I have a problem with my higher self right now. So I'm like, I don't know what happened with this live, but that's another story. I'll ask about that. But so our higher self is working on this. When we say that the higher self is working on it, though, what we mean is that the higher self is trying to push down information to us at a conscious level all the time. But many of us don't want to then remember it or be fully conscious of it. And for you, you might want to do a quick test, because they have suggested that we do. Sometimes Lorraine and I have been resisting what the 25th told us, because we're like, no, we're ready. We can know this. It's fine. I mean, the faster we know things, the faster we move on. But the 25th has told us, we understand what you're saying, but in reality, you are not ready, because no one will be ready to handle this. This has been, by far, the lowest vibration anywhere in the multiverse. There is so much stuff. We think we know a lot already, and we know some awful things already. There's so much stuff we don't have no idea about. The 25th, knowing that we know a lot of intel and stuff, keeps saying, you don't even know 1% of what's happening here. You would not be able to handle it. If even, in fact, even the 1% you do know about emotionally, you wouldn't be able to handle. Let me tell you, I do believe them. I believe them. Why? Because I remember my dreams, and a lot of this information is coming through in dream format. And so I've already had dreams that deal with a tiny little bit of what's been happening here, talking about rituals, talking about people being killed. And even then, when I had my first dream along these lines, I didn't even remember it, which is so unusual for me. And it only came back to mind when Carolyn called me, actually. And of course, Carolyn was meant to call me, because we're all working on this together. She didn't know she was calling me about this, but as I was speaking to her about something related, all of a sudden I remember this dream. So see, we all are working together. We're all doing exactly what we need to be doing. If you don't remember your dreams, that's perfectly fine. Some of us do not want to do this work right now at a conscious level, but the work is still being done, meaning that the higher self is basically allowed to pass down this information to us. And when I say allowed, it's not because obviously there are rules imposed on the higher self, but we as at a higher self level have chosen to know or not know certain things within the matrix. This information we're talking about, the fact that we are Neo, that we create our reality, was not allowed to be known consciously until recently. Just like the information about the 25th was not allowed to be known consciously until last year. And the reason is that we have decided that knowing this information will not upset the matrix, will not upset the game. We're just going to go on, and whoever doesn't want to know this information, they'll just dismiss it. They'll think, for example, the reason we don't eat on New Earth is because we're New Earthians, and therefore that's how we are, but everybody else needs to eat. The reason we will not have use time on New Earth is because it's a thing about New Earth that allows us not to have to know time, whereas everybody else needs it. And that's okay. So it doesn't upset everybody else's game, which is important because one, we like the game. We like the way that this is being played. It's just that we specifically have chosen to go to New Earth and to have a different experience. It doesn't mean we want to ruin everybody else's experience. Not only, but we ourselves, after we do our New Earth experience once, twice, however many times, maybe 20,000 years in a row, because we don't have to die. We'll know death is not real, so we can just stay there. We don't have to keep reincarnating. We're not ancient anyway. But say we're on New Earth for 10,000, 20,000 years and we get tired, then we can just move on, pretend that we are passing away, and move on to a new planet where they have completely matrix beliefs, and we will just start over, basically pretend to come in as children, and we'll believe whatever they believe for some amount of time. So we do want the game to stay in place. Excuse me. Let me have a sip of water here, tea. All right, so Holly, I hope that answers your question. So it's not, again, it's not that these NPCs are taking themselves out because they want to. They really have no wants, okay? It's mostly accidents, if you want to think of it that way, that happen to them. But yes, it's happening more and more in greater and greater numbers, and also because time is going on, time is passing. And NPCs, you know, the more time you pass without an essence, the more there's a chance you're going to succumb to something. Even, for example, a lot of these low vibrational products like this thing, but really anything else, all the foods that they're all completely full of pesticide or whatever it is, even the air that we breathe, anything where the essence could have said, yeah, I don't care about any of that, the NPCs are going to suffer from it, because now it's just the body left to its own devices. And guess what? The body absorbs all the energy of the low vibrational products. It's just the way it is. So hopefully that answers your question, Holly. I am going to keep going here because, as I said, there are several questions regarding NPCs, which I think are very good, and I'm glad we're having this conversation. All right, so for example, in this case, Lorraine had a few questions, so I'm just going to read them for you. The 25th has said that NPCs come in with a personality that we as essences then overlay when we inhabit the body. And by overlay, she means that we work with that personality and then we imbue it with whatever intention we want to imbue the personality with to have certain experiences. She's asking, why is this necessary? I'm not quite sure what she means by necessary. I am going to assume here, and Lorraine, please let me know if this is not what she meant, but I think she's referring to the fact, why is it necessary for the NPC to have a personality and for us to have to overlay on top of it? That's not quite how it works. The NPC is a personality because personality is like a bodily, like a physical trait, okay? I have a sizable nose, which I love, by the way, okay? So I'm not being critical of myself. Some people have a smaller nose. You pick the NPC and that's what it comes with. It means you wanted this experience, okay? Some people might have a really, curved nose, and all of a sudden this does affect their experience. My nose has not affected, obviously, my life. But some people might have an issue with their nose, and all of a sudden it becomes the focus of whatever other experience they have, how they see themselves, how they go through life, whatever that might be. And so it is a trait. It is something that you just pick. It's part of your NPC. And so is it necessary to overlay the intention of the higher self? Well, the higher self is picking this body to have certain experiences. In fact, and I don't believe this video is being released yet, but there's an example of 25th brings where I was asking, why do I have this type of personality, which is very feisty, very, very rebellious, as many of you, right? We certainly are not 3D. We don't just go along with things, clearly. How come if I have this personality, we got to this point, because I feel like we've been so passive as the team of the light in the face of the team of the dark. And they go into a long explanation about this, and that's fine. But the gist of it, the reason I'm bringing this up, is because this was a very 3D way. 25th told me it's a very 3D way of looking at it. Because the fact is, personality, we are judging our personality. We're saying one personality is better than the other. And not only we're saying people who have a weaker personality, somehow they're the cause of what's been happening, the reason why everything is going south, and you know, the sleepers, whatever. So it's part of our judgment on this planet, which is what it is. I'm aware of it now that that's what it is, but again, there's nothing wrong with playing the game here, okay? We don't need to be judging ourselves too. And so the 25th is saying, for example, people who might have a meeker personality, the essence might have chosen that person with that personality so as to set up an experience where they get taken advantage of or even abused. Now, of course, these are not high vibration choices, okay? The 25th keeps on saying there was no need for any of this here, okay? So they're not justified, but they're saying it's part of the package that you pick. There is a reason. So why does when we say that the higher self imbues, it doesn't imbue its own personality, okay? What the higher self does is it maneuvers through this personality to do certain things. And this, in a similar example, to use an analogy, might be, I'm gonna pick a 6 foot or even 7 foot tall body because my experience is to become a basketball player. That's all there is to this. So it's not that it's necessary, but the moment that you as essence pick a body, you are going to use the body, leverage the body, including the personality, to achieve your purposes. So Lorraine, I hope this makes sense, and do let me know if you have a follow-up questions. So she does have a few more questions here that I didn't write down already though. So can't we as SSs just intend our personality be programmed into the NPC when we are out and about? Here's the thing, again, the essence has no personality. As personality is a trait of the body, of the NPC. Imagine in essence, we know everything, we've been around, we are energy. We don't have personality in the way that we think personality, which you can be this way, you can be that way, you can be social, you can be a bear. You just want to stay in your own place all the time. Whatever we think of personality, that's not a personality. It's just like putting on a dress and changing dresses in between lives. So it's not something that. So I'm not quite sure what you mean by our personality be programmed. We don't have personality. And programmed, the NPC already comes with a personality, and it's not something that the higher self has to fight necessarily. It's something the higher self knew was the case and said, let me see how I can structure that. Doesn't mean that the higher self is having an easy time getting some information through, because you might have picked a personality, but all of a sudden it's time for the personality, for the body, the conscious body, to wake up. Like in my case, and because I am so stubborn, my essence my higher self had to keep hammering things into me until finally I woke up. If you've read my book on Tamed Different, you know what I'm talking about. And because of my personality, but guess what? My personality has been great for achieving other purposes for the higher self, including me here talking about these things. So is it a good choice? Was it a bad choice? That's what we're talking about. It's just something you set up, you know, you're going a certain direction. Might take the higher self one day to get something to you, might take the higher self 5 years, like in my case, to get something to you. But the higher self knows, because it's you. You basically set yourself up to awaken, to do this, that, whatever it might be. Eventually you'll get there. And your personality here is part of what will get you there as well. So the next question from Lorraine is, the NPC is a hologram created by us to create the reality we've determined we want. Are there NPCs that take on a dark reference point personality and continue to play this out even when the essence has gone? So I think she means to say that NPCs who were, when they had essences, were on the side of the dark. I think that's what she means by they take on a dark reference point personality. So I touched on this a little bit when I said NPCs follow the flow of energy. Now, there's no energy out there. There's no energy floating in the air. Energy comes from essence. But the moment that an essence has left an NPC, the NPC is open to other essences' intention, because we have certain intentions for how things are going to play out here. That's the intention that's being set. And so these NPCs are following our guidance, okay? So in this case, because we have changed the polarity and we've rebalanced the polarity here, even though, again, it doesn't look like much at surface level, all these NPCs that were on the side of the dark when they had essences and the intention was there to do dark things, no longer have that intention to support those dark ideas. And therefore, they're actually floating a little bit, which doesn't mean they're turning to the light. Again, they don't do anything drastic. NPCs don't just change overnight. However, they might find excuses, like, for example, the NPCs, the 25th was saying that there were people working for 3-letter agencies in the United States. They're using excuses like, oh, I'm just going to retire. Oh, you know, I'm feeling sick. I don't think I should do this anymore. I'm going to go on a leave of absence. So they're finding excuses not to do dark things anymore. So in this case, they wouldn't just continue as they did before. Okay. Now on the side of the light, they can, because again, they're just following the vibration, and we have rebalanced the polarity, so the vibration is much higher than it used to be. All right, next question. And I have to keep an eye on time here because I do need to get my daughter, but I still have probably almost an hour here. So I do want to get through all these questions. And again, I am so sorry the live didn't work out, but we will fix this. We'll know for next time. So why would we, the few left, not want to intend things to ease up in the area of darkness? It seems things just keep ramping up and going south, even with the amount of exposure coming out. We do, and we have already rebalanced the polarity. So we don't want, and we don't have the same level of darkness we had before. And now I understand what Lorraine is saying here. It seems things just keep ramping up and going south. The fact is they don't. It depends on what you focus on, just like everything else, every other time. It depends on what you're paying attention to. If you're only paying attention to negative things, for example, if you watch a lot of Intel or whatever it is, which again, there is no judgment. We've all done this. I know I've done this, okay? So I'm not criticizing anybody, but I just know where this comes from, because again, having done this, I know exactly what that makes you feel like. It makes you feel like everything is so bad. Whereas, for example, before I used to watch Intel when I was very 3D, I was happy with my life. I was focused on my life. I was focused on what I could do. So in that sense, for example, the people that have gone to 3D chambers, even when they were here, they were a lot happier than many of us who actually knew about all the stuff that was going on in the background. So I can see that. I can see that there is a different focus. So she's saying everything is going south. Not everything is going south. We're seeing drip as an example. We're seeing drip after drip after drip that's taking us to the fact of the recall, which we are going to have. Now, here's why this is wonderful, because many of us still don't believe this is going to happen, which is great, because again, the moment that it happens, because it will happen if I have any say in it, the moment that it happens, we will know we made it happen, because it didn't have to happen. And if we had still been in the past, there is no past, but in, when we had lower vibration, this would have never happened. You guys know, because I know we tend to compartmentalize and forget things. I watch some memes sometimes, or some videos that put together, for example, compilations of everything the media was saying at the time about people that weren't getting this thing. We should be put in internment camps. We should not be allowed. We should not be allowed in emergency rooms. We should not be allowed life-saving treatments. All these things. This didn't happen that long ago. This happened most a few months ago. This was still happening at the beginning of this year. How come now we're talking about these things are not safe? They're neither safe nor effective. We've been taken. It's corporate greed. And this is being said in Congress, in governments around the world. Now, of course, governments are pretending to be the good guys like they didn't know. But doesn't matter. That's how we want it, because we don't want governments to collapse completely before we go. Nobody wants to deal with this BS. All right. They've been obnoxious enough when they were functioning. Imagine if we now have to take care of cleaning up the rubbish. But things are happening. And I know that Lorraine sees this as well. And I know we all get into this where we're like, well, it's not happening fast enough. I mean, I'm not seeing the difference. I look outside and life looks exactly the same as it did before. I get this. So that's why I'm saying nobody can disagree with this. But the truth is, if you're focusing on the things that we are focused on, you do things. It's almost like a trail of crumbs. So, and again, once we get there, we will know in hindsight, it will all make sense, of course, and we'll see like, who would have thought? And then we'll know it was us all along. All right, she does have a couple more questions that I want to go through. She says, we have remained so that we could fully know that we create our reality. Correct. But it does not seem to me that we are doing that. It seems that the original dark program just keeps running. How do we get to the level of program and switch the program? Very fair question. The original program is no longer running because we are not supporting it, and because there's only us, really, mostly. There's still, again, about 1%, 4 million people on the side of the dark who we want them to stay here and to do the fake show that we're seeing, because again, we don't want the shell to look different. Okay, we would not, it would be too much to deal with. And there are some in the middle, but most of us, there are 15 million left on the side of the light. Okay, so it is our intention. We are no longer supporting the dark. What that means is that this has been one of the hardest things for me to realize. And I have had many discussions with the 25th, and I was quite upset in the beginning when I realized this. I started thinking, wow, the team of the light is very passive. Wow, we've done nothing. Wow, we suck, all these things. And one of the hardest things for me to wrap my mind around or to accept has been the fact that nobody's innocent here. The reason, oh, really, we are all innocent because this was all a huge mistake. We didn't actually expect that things would go this way. But at the end of the day, the reason I say nobody's innocent is because the only way that you can create a sustainable reality that's global, like we have, is if everyone, absolutely everyone, supports it. Because if you didn't support it, you wouldn't be in this reality. And so it's been very hard for me to accept the fact that, as judgmental as I am, because that's the game here, we're all judgmental, I think very much in black and white terms when it comes to certain things, whether it's children, whether it's animal treatment, whether it's the environment, I am full of judgment, okay? I know it's been hard for me, and I know how hard it will be for me to accept this when we go to New Earth and the veil falls, and I realize very fully that I participated in all of this. And I know when I stop, even at a logical level, just 3D level, when I stop and say, I am banking with Chase, I'm banking with Bank of America. I don't know if there's anything more evil than these corporations around. I don't even know if we had to do a classification, like a hit parade of the evilest. I mean, I'm sure they're up there. So we have supported these things. We supported them emotionally. We supported them. We basically said, okay, well, I guess it does the job, which is maintain this reality the way it is. This is just the way it is. So that's what I'm talking about. We, or I should say, I should speak for myself. I know that we, as the team of the light, have supported the dark. That's why the darkness has pervaded our reality. But we are no longer doing that. Not only we're not supporting the dark anymore, there's really not much of the dark left to come. They're not coming up with ideas that we're supporting anymore. Now you hear every now and then they talk about the carbon tax credits. I'm like, boring, next. We're not doing any of that. But it's also the fact that now we have finally found our power. We are finding our voice where we're saying it's okay to change reality. We are intending things to go a certain way. And again, this is where what the recall will show us. So we are not shy anymore about stating, because this has been the problem on the team of the light. We've always been very timid compared to the dark about breaking the rules. We've always been afraid that by pushing certain intentions, we would break the game. Whereas they didn't have a problem with that. Not that they want to break the game. They never had a problem with trying and see how things would work. Whereas we've always been so shy about that. And now we're not doing it anymore. Now we're like, okay, there's nobody else left here. It's only us. Let's do what we gotta do. This planet is a goner anyway. All right. And I'm not talking about Gaia. Gaia's coming with us. And obviously we care about her. All right. So this is to say that, yes, we have changed the polarity. The 25th keeps telling us this. And so we are not supporting the program, the old program. And we are not going to overlay our program or another program for one simple reason. We're not doing anything here anymore. This is really about us learning something right now. And again, not learning because we have to be better, learning because we want to. We're interested in this experience, which is changing the entire multiverse. And because of that, this is all we're focused on. And as soon as we're done with that, hopefully we decide to move on. I don't know. We're going to have another live to discuss this and say, okay, everybody speak to your higher self. All right. So yeah, we're not gonna create a new program here for the simple reason that we don't want to create anything here. Okay. So if by program though you mean, Lorraine, intention, like we're setting up our intention, yes, that's what we're doing. But we're not going to change the way that this looks on the surface, because the surface is keeping us comforted that not everything is falling apart. Because otherwise we would, I mean, even the worst apocalyptic movies you've ever seen would be nothing compared to what would happen here. Imagine we wouldn't even have food distributed probably, because how would that work without a supply chain? Everything is run by the dark. So that's what we're talking about. We don't want to deal with that. It's too much. I know I don't want to deal with that. I'm already emotional just thinking about tiny little things compared to what could happen. So I know many say, oh no, I'm ready. And I'm sure Lorraine is saying this because she does feel ready. But at the same time, at a higher self level, none of us is really ready. That's what the 25th keeps telling us. And now I do want to say, before I move on to the next question, I do want to say, again, you can do this test to see what you're willing to know. It's a test that the 25th asked Lorraine to do because she does want to know more. And the 25th suggested, because again, obviously they're not telling her what to do. She's an ascended master. She knows what to do. But basically they were suggesting one thing we could do is, for example, in Lorraine's case, she could ask before going to bed, she could ask to be shown a little piece of what's been going on behind the scenes to decide to see how she reacts to it. Because what happens in dream state is that it's a real life experience. We're not really even sleeping, we're actually traveling when we have these dreams. And basically our higher self, she's seeing things at the level of the higher self, so she's actually seeing everything. That's why in dreams we're capable of moving from the point of view of one character to another, for example, to know everything that's going on. And based on that reaction, she'll know what she can handle or not, or what her higher self is protecting her from. Because this is what we're doing by keeping the shell in place. We are protecting ourselves, which is very important. It's very important to us. All right, let me see. The next thing, it feels like we are just sitting around in the theater watching a movie and it has no real purpose. You said that there is, sorry guys, this thing is moving. Okay, you said there is nothing we need to do, but clearly we're remaining for a purpose at 3D level to cause something to happen. So having some insight into that purpose would be really great. The sitting around on our butts is getting really old. I get that. I'm with you, Lorraine. Yeah, so we know there is a purpose. The purpose is realizing, truly realizing, not just saying it, doing lip service. Oh, we create our reality, which I've known for years. I've heard this for years, but I didn't actually know it. Now we're actually realizing, oh, it is true. And I don't know how you guys feel, but I feel it. I feel like something, for example, this life thing, why am I asking my higher self about it? Because I know I did something. There's got to be, these things don't just happen. I want to know what is going on. And the 25th says, explain to us many of these things, these snags are happening because, again, this is what it means to us, to have the shell in place. It means that snags, low vibrational things happen. Why? Because this is what we're used to here. We don't believe so much the beautiful, lovely things because we feel like, oh, I did that. Because I mean, the only reason something beautiful would happen is I made that happen, right? I mean, even when we talk about the law of attraction, it's all about making beautiful things happen, right? I made that happen. But when it comes to low vibrational things, snags, we all of a sudden think, oh, reality, what's happening? So they have much more cred in our opinion. And we feel we can still pretend that there is somebody outside there playing with us, playing with us in this game. Something is happening that we have no control over. So you see, it's achieving the purpose of the higher self, which right now is to make us feel like we're still here. We're still playing within the game. So that is the purpose. That is the purpose why we're staying. And I understand that sitting around is no fun. Oh my gosh, it's less than fun. All right, last question from Lorraine. Please elaborate on what we or the light workers are choosing to learn. Now, Lorraine knows this perfectly well. You guys know this as well if you've watched previous videos. When we say learn, we don't mean learn as in lessons so we can improve ourselves, okay? Learn, again, we are testing things to see how they feel, okay? We learn how we feel about certain things. And in this case, what we're learning is that the light workers specifically, but all of us who have stayed behind, and especially on the team of the light, we are learning that it is okay to overlay our intention in a game. So if we even had anything close to the situation we've had on this planet in the beginning, where we kind of felt out of control, we felt like we had to go along with things, we had to do what the team of the dark wanted to do, because we were afraid that if we imposed our intention to lighten things up, we would break the game. Whereas that's what we're doing now. We're realizing, well, the game is not breaking. It's just getting better. So let me tell you, I've had a really hard time with this because I'm thinking, duh. Because of course at 3D level, we're thinking, well, that makes sense. But it doesn't, because the truth is, and the 25th as explained in length, and I have several videos coming out about this, because let me tell you, I've grilled them on this over and over because I'm trying to understand what the hell did we do? Where did we go wrong? Why did we not do anything to salvage this? Because of course I'm so upset that we're taking this down. And I know I'm not the only one. And so basically I'm having a hard time with the fact that we're like, why couldn't we say no to torturing animals, for example? Okay, does the job, sure. Low vibration, you can't hardly go any more lower vibration than that, although we figured out other ways as well. But I mean, why couldn't we just say no, we'll stop here? And apparently we're just like, because again, at the higher self level, this doesn't matter, right? What we see as pain and torture and all these things, they don't really matter. It's not fun. But at the higher self level, we're all safe. We're all in the 25th dimension. This is not real. It's almost like you are playing a video game and your guy gets all shot up and dies. You're feeling nothing. And that's how I have learned to wrap my mind around this, because I still get so upset about it. So bottom line is, it is important where we are learning that it's okay to play our game. We don't have to go along with what other people say. And I will tell you something that just came to me as I was saying this. In my life, I've always been a go-along kind of person, meaning happy-go-lucky. If it's something that I can take, that I can go along with, even though it's not great, I will go along with it. I think some of you might refer to that as being a pushover. And I have been a pushover for many years. I'm not ashamed of saying it. I wrote a whole book about this. I think we are taught at society level to be pushovers, meaning that it's good to help and to do what other people want. The problem with that is that we never got to the point where we actually stand up for ourselves. It's taken me a long time to learn this lesson, and again, lesson where I don't do that anymore. But the truth is, it is my preference, of course. I want everybody to get along. I love people. So even though I can think of maybe of a better way of doing something, if it makes somebody else happy, I'm like, okay, let's go do it. I always tell people, for example, you want to go hang out with a friend of mine, say somebody that I like spending time with this person. Say she tells me, let's go, I don't know, let's use a guy example, because I'm not super interested in certain sports or in watching sports in general. And he says to me, and it could be a girl, of course, he say, let's go watch a baseball game. I couldn't care less about baseball, but I would be super excited to go. Why? Because I'm thinking I'm going to go hang out with this person that I really like, that I really enjoy. That's what I'm talking about. Whereas now, and again, I'm using a 3D example, but this is how I'm connecting to this concept. Now it would be like, listen, I love hanging out with you. Let's do something together. But you know what? Let's look at all the other things that we both enjoy, and let's do one of those instead. I really don't care about baseball. Let's go maybe watch a concert. We both like this band. Let's go do that instead. Sounds very simple, but it takes a lot of maturing, or at least it has in my 3D life, in this current life, to get to that point. And I can only imagine that this is a very small analogy for what we have described, especially we have lived through at a higher self level, especially when you consider that there was a huge problem or a huge risk for us, which was, we're going to break this game. And imagine what we would have dealt with had we actually broken a game. So this is what I'm talking about, and this is what the 25th refers to, and this is why it is so important what we are learning now. And the 25th has told us, even before this overtime, because we're in overtime, as you guys know, we should have gone with everybody else by the end of, I think it was July. In the summer, we're supposed to all be gone and be done here. We decided to stay to experience this. And the reason we wanted to experience this because once it's being downloaded at conscious level, it means it can be downloaded. As I said, it's now allowed within the matrix, and therefore anybody can connect to this knowledge. For the 12,000, this is huge because it means we can always use it on any other planet. We can be much more assertive if we need to recalibrate or help a planet to recalibrate. But it's really good to know for all of us because we can always call ourselves out from a reality in a conscious manner. Now, you don't have to remember this information when you move on to the next station after New Earth, for example. So you can be in the game. This is not going to ruin the game for you. But the 25th, as said, this information will always be available for us. We will never be fully asleep ever again. So we'll never have the option to be fully 3D, for example, or fully 9D or fully 18D, wherever you happen to reincarnate next after New Earth. But also because of this, we already thought we would never have to take another planet down after this last time. But because of the new impulse that was input in the matrix by source this past spring, it's changed everything, it's re-energized the game. It's a lot more fun. The vibration is much higher. Of course, it's also much higher because of what we've done here. But now, specifically because of this overtime and our conscious knowledge of being Neo, we are going to be able to, we basically, and of course, there's no future that can be predicted, but basically 25th says even more so now, we expect we'll never have to do another one of these takedowns. And that alone is worth it to me because I'm seeing how much we're going through with this one takedown. So hopefully that answers your questions, Marie. Let me check the time. Okay, we have about a half hour, good. Jill, so Jill Chan says, so she asked me if I asked the 25th about the number 106 because she's now seeing it all the time. So this is what I wanted to let you know. First of all, the number 106 is something that I received in dream state from the 25th, and I asked them about it, and they said it is related to the takedown, and basically it's a way, like every other code, it's a trigger, it's a memory trigger to remind us of what we know or how we manipulate energy. Now, we don't need codes or anything else to manipulate energy. We know how to manipulate energy. But what these codes do for us, it's almost like you put a key in a lock and you unlock the door. It simply does remind us. And so it's funny now to me, and not funny, funny as in interesting, the fact that she's now seeing it everywhere, because you see, we are all working on the same things. So let me tell you what the 106 is about, or why I was told that I was reminded of this code. Is because, as you know, 104 is the number I kept seeing coming up over and over until I asked the 25th, and they said that 104 is related to 104 is basically how we created this reality, and how we create reality, period. And so therefore 104 is the number we are using, or the energy that we are connecting to when we are intending the recall, okay? And not just the recall, intending everything, basically changing this reality, rebalancing, etc. This is the code that we're using, okay? And the code, again, it just unlocks all the process, okay? That's all it is, because we know what the process looks like. But at conscious level, we're like 104, and all of a sudden we remember that we're doing this, so how we do things. And so there was a lot of focus on the 104 for several weeks, if not months. It was coming up for me. I mean, it's even come up. I don't know if you guys saw when I tested the live earlier, when I stopped it, it was 104. It said 104. I didn't do that on purpose. I looked later and it said 104. It comes up all the time for me. But now all of a sudden they sent me 106, and this happened a few weeks ago. And the reason they sent it is because we don't want to forget, again, the memory was, and this is how you do the takedown. when it's time. They don't want us to forget just because we're so focused on recall. I know I have been. They don't want us to forget that this is still happening because we're having a takedown. So that's why they're bringing up the 106. I do love that she's saying it all the time, because I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't want to get your hopes up either. But I'm really hoping that as we get closer to the recall, because it's going to happen, that we decide to move on. And that's why now we're seeing 106, so we can focus on that. But I have no idea what the lag will be. I don't know if we'll decide to, quote unquote, learn something else after we do the recall. Hopefully not, guys, because this is like boring beyond belief. But at any rate, so that's why. And I'm very happy to hear that you're seeing 106 all the time. That's very cool. Leslie. So Leslie Wilson says, I still don't truly get the NPC thing. Yes, they have no essence, etc., but they have children, they work, they bleed, etc. I must be interacting with them. So are NPCs just biology walking around? I mean, I understand on one level, but where are they really? I totally get the gist of this question. I'm having a hard time too, but the reason we are having a hard time, it's very hard for us to think of our friends, our loved ones, people with children, people who work, people like us who have no essence. And all of a sudden, at a 3D level, we want the separation, and we're thinking, yeah, but you're a robot. You're just biology. It's like, what's the difference between me and you? Because we want to know. We want to know these things. It's weird. It's a weird concept for us. I know it is for me, for sure. Excuse me. And so I want to say, because I've gone through all of this with the 25th, I've had the same reaction, the same, like, I feel like we're almost disrespectful. So even calling them NPCs, like they're nothing. But the 25th has told me that it's not that they're nothing. We are extremely, extremely grateful to these bodies. I mean, this body is still serving me right now as I speak. So these bodies have been great for us. But at the end of the day, they are holographics. Yeah, they're biology, if you want to call it that. They're biology walking around. NPCs can have children too. They can have children with essences. They can have children or other NPCs. Nothing wrong with them. We don't need to judge them in that sense. And of course, that's what we do here. We judge. Okay, so it's just the way it is. So let's get over it. We don't need to judge ourselves for judging. It's how this planet works. But at the same time, what I mean to say is that we don't have to think of them as being less or they don't require respect. Because I know that's where you're coming from. You're hurting is what it is. You're hurting because these are our families. I speak with my parents. My entire family is gone. And when I think about it, and the 25th has spoken about this, we don't want to know. When I speak with my family, I go into a sort of amnesia. I don't want to think about it. The problem is right now, it's always in the back of my mind because, again, we're learning reality. We're becoming Neo, so we know what's going on here. I'm very aware of what's going on. I don't believe anything I see anymore. And so, of course, it's hard for me to forget that, even when I'm speaking with my family. At the same time, I don't want to think that they are not there. I treat them like I treated them before. I love them. I would be heartbroken if anything happened to them. But the truth is, when we go inside and we connect and we feel into this person, the 25th always says here, we see things, we look with our 3D eyes. But when we feel, they say, we don't feel into things here. If you go in and you feel into people, you will know who's here and who's not. And the vast majority of the time, you're like, no, but look, the same as before. And you will know, you will stop and you'll know they're not there anymore. But the truth is, they're very similar to before. It's just that we at a higher self level, we have nothing to connect to. Because of course, we don't connect with holograms. So when we go out and see our friends, for example, when I go out, I see my friends. I know they're not there. I know, look at this. I'm like, I'm making this up. I'm crazy. I'm just making up a bunch of people. It's like we have your imaginary friends. This is literally what we're living through. And it's hard. It's hard for us at a 3D level with this mind. It's hard to conceive of this. So I get it. And we feel compassion. I've been upset for a very long time about taking down this planet because I'm like, what about these people? What about these bodies? Can they just go on and live their lives? Can we just leave them behind? I don't know if you guys remember, I asked this question too, because it's heartbreaking. These are our friends. And at the same time, the 25th has explained, we are very grateful. But truthfully, they're not real at the end of the day. When we move on and we have the perspective of the higher self, which we will have, we'll realize these were a creation. Again, they're not called NPCs for nothing. It is a creation like in a video game. They don't actually exist. And when we separate ourselves and we look at the perspective of the higher self, we don't feel about things the way that we do here. In fact, I have actually 2 or 3 videos coming out about this because I wanted to understand how emotions work, because I know when I've connected to source or I've connected to the 25th, I don't feel the same way that I feel when I'm here. So I understand when they say we are everything, and it's our judgment here, the way that we feel about things, our emotions work here, they make us feel certain ways in regards to certain aspects of reality. Whereas this is just something we created. We love it because it is so different from how we feel at higher self level, which doesn't mean the higher self doesn't care, but it's not the same degree of fear that we have here. And when you think about it, I've done a lot of thinking around this after speaking about this with the 25th. The reason we feel so desperate about certain things, so sad, or so in love even, is because of loss. We believe in loss, and therefore when we feel something, we are afraid. We're afraid of losing something, or we're afraid that things are not going the way we want them to. We are afraid. We're just afraid here all the time. And again, this is a game that we play because we want to feel the opposite of eternal, the opposite of safe. We are safe, where nothing can ever happen to us. So I understand where you're coming from, Leslie, and yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult for us to accept this. I've had to do a lot of work around this, but I have managed to find some balance there. So I hope you do as well. And it doesn't mean in any way that we don't care about the bodies. Obviously, we're very grateful to these bodies. They do so much for us. They've done so much for us. And yeah, especially when you see children and animals. And so I get where you're coming from. All right. So last question here. So perfect timing because it's 2:36 here. Okay. Hillary says, further to the NPC thing, excuse me, further to the NPC thing, I always felt that it was the essence that gave life. And at point of death, the essence left. With NPCs, what does death look like? Is it just that the organs fail? So that's an excellent question. So death is not real. We know this, obviously, and I know that you know it as well, Hillary. Death, so when the essence, what is death for the essence? The essence basically decides, okay, I've done this earth thing, or I've done this life on earth thing. I want to go do another life on earth thing, or I want to do another life somewhere else. All we were doing at essence level is we're removing our focus from here, turning it over there. That's all we're doing. Second we turn it over there, this doesn't exist anymore. It's almost like you're switching channel on your television. Doesn't matter what is happening on the old channel, you're now focused on a new channel. That's what death is. And most of the time, the vast majority of the time in the past, when the essence decided to move on, decided to take the body out, or took the body out, or caused the body to die, what we consider passing, one mean or the other. It could be, if you're lucky, maybe in your sleep, or if if you want to experience something different as an essence, it's an accident or whatever it might be, or some disease or whatever the case might be. So this was the normal way that the essence would behave. So in this case, yes, the essence, as you said, left the body at the point of death, right? Meaning it's not that it left it at the point of death, of course, it's that the essence moved and then all of a sudden we experience what looks like death. So then you say, with NPCs, what does death look like? Is it just the organs fail? The NPCs, yes, because they don't intend. So really what it looks like is that something causes the body to deteriorate, maybe if it's a disease, or to, again, the organs to fail, if it's maybe a heart attack, whatever it is. Anything that the essence could have shielded the body from is the essence. If the essence is not there to shield the body, the NPC might do something that is done a million times. For example, getting like 6 of these, no problem. All of a sudden, for the first 5, the essence is there. All of a sudden, the 6th does them in. Is it the low vibrational product? It is and it isn't. If the essence was there, it wouldn't matter how low vibrational product is. If the essence is not interested in a side effect, it's all good. It doesn't really matter. But the body does not have this protection. So all of a sudden, the body is left to its own devices. Low vibrational energy comes in. These bodies are not equipped. 25th has spoken about this. These bodies are not equipped to overcome very low vibrational products. In fact, on other planets, they don't have them. And they don't have them for that reason. Because already at higher self level, they've decided we don't want to damage these bodies. Because the essence can choose to move on anyway. You can choose to move on in your sleep, and that's okay. You don't have to always cause such low vibrational and painful things from a 3D perspective to happen to your body. And so that's what's happening. So in that case, yes, the NPC does not intend to pass away. It's not a decision like I'm going somewhere else. The NPC is not going anywhere else. And that's what happens, is that somehow basically the body gives out. Whether the NPC is doing something very stupid, and again, it's done it a million times before. It was never stupid before. Maybe they're a stunt person, okay? But all of a sudden an accident happens because, again, the essence is not there to save them. It's not there to change events and change reality. NPCs do not manifest their reality. That's what we mean when they say they go along. Whatever it is that happens to them. We decide what happens around us. So we are actually dictating what the NPCs are doing right now. So when you watch Intel or you watch mainstream media or you watch whatever it is that you watch, everything you're seeing is NPCs. They're puppets that we are puppeteering. All you see is this person talking about this person. Both of those people are NPCs. There are very, very, very few essences left. 25 million when you think about it. There's probably one of us or two of us or three of us in every city at this point. That's it. So vast majority of people you're hanging out with has no essence. I know it's tough to wrap our minds around it, but this is what it is. It actually gives me some comfort because I know we're not going to hang out here and play for a long time when there's nobody else around to play with, because how boring is this? So I'm hoping that, this means that we'll decide to move on sooner rather than later. I try not to attach myself to any expectation of moving on in X amount of time because, been there, done that, and I don't want to do this anymore, especially since the 25th has explained to us again and again, there is no time. The reason they gave us the timeline for the takedown originally was because they've always used the analogy of the warehouse. They say you have a warehouse, you have this huge warehouse, you decide to empty out. You have no idea how long it's going to take you, but you've been working on it for 295 years and you're like, you have this much left, you know at what rate you've been working, you're like, okay, we're going to be done by about this time. But you don't know the exact day that's going to happen, the exact week, because maybe there's a snag, maybe people don't show up at work, all of a sudden it's taking you a little bit longer. Not only, but they always tell us that short of the takedown of this entire planet or us leaving, everything else has happened. So it's not like the takedown didn't happen. Everything that was connected to it, we've been working on this again for 300 years. Lots of things have taken place. But of course, because we're here, we look at it and we're like, oh, it didn't happen. But so for this reason, they don't give us timelines because, again, they say we're in over time. They're saying we're not, this is completely new. They're going along for the ride. They're actually enjoying themselves in this sense. Everybody's very excited about this, including us in the background for what we are doing, because again, it's unheard of, it's new. And you can imagine, as essences, we've been around for eons. To do new things is not that easy. So this is exciting at a higher self level. At the same time, 25th cannot give us a timeline because, again, they don't predict time. They're just saying to us right now, this is what you're wanting to experience. This is how you're going to know this is going to be your landmark to know that you've learned, you've experienced what you wanted to experience, meaning that at an emotional level, we've accepted that we create our reality. And when this happens, and we're talking about the recall, you'll regroup and decide what to do next. And that's why I'm saying I hope we decide to move on because as exciting as this is, I'm ready to move on. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I am so sorry again that we didn't manage to do the live, but again, I've learned a lot as well. So we will not put ourselves in the hands of YouTube like that again, and we'll figure out something else because we don't stop at anything. It was great hanging out, and I can't wait to hear your feedback. And if you have any more questions for me, I'm happy to do more of these as well. But I will set up a Zoom for all of us to connect, and we might even see each other's faces. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.